Hello, and welcome to LabGab, a live stream variety show that showcases events, destinations, and different talents across Second Life. I'm your host, Strawberry Linden. Today on our show, we are sitting at the Peale in Second Life, and we have with us Nancy Proctor, the director of the Peale in Baltimore, David London, the Peale's chief experience officer, and Emmy Capolini from Virtual Ability, who helped build the Peale in Second Life. Welcome to the show, Nancy, David, and Emmy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
How are you guys doing? And just before we get into the questions about the Peale, I know it's with all the pandemic and craziness going around, just want to make sure your health and everything is good. How are you all?
Doing good here.
Feeling good. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Strawberry.
Okay, so what is the Peale? Can you tell us about the history of the Peale itself? How did it come about as the first purpose-built museum building? And while you're telling me that, I'm just going to cam around a little bit so people can see what it looks like in Second Life right now as well.
Sure. Well, the Peale opened its doors on August 15th, 1814 in downtown Baltimore. It was created by Rembrandt Peale, who was an artist from a family of artists. The patriarch was Charles Willson Peale, who had actually founded the first museum in the country in 1786. It started actually in his home studio in Philadelphia. But his son actually for a long time had the desire to open a museum in Baltimore and finally managed in 1814 to open a purpose-built one, the very first one in this country. And so it's a really interesting museum because, frankly, there weren't very many purpose-built museums anywhere in the world at this time. So he and his architect, Robert Carey Long Sr., really had to think about, well, what does a museum look like? What affordances does it need if you're able to start from scratch and build it for that purpose alone? So it's a very interesting building architecturally for that reason, but also has an incredible number of stories. In its 206 years, it's had many lives, and been the home to many firsts, both for Baltimore and for the nation. So we'll go over a few of those stories as we walk around today, but today, really, we focus on storytelling at the Peale. It is, we call it a home for Baltimore stories. And rather than physical objects on pedestals or in glass cases, as folks might think of when they think of a museum, we exhibit and share and help amplify the voices and the stories of Baltimore to make sure that Baltimore can be known for its full diversity and that its cultural record can include everybody and not just, as they say, the victors who get to write the history books.
Right.
So we're a sort of a new kind of museum for the 21st century, and we take that role very seriously as a laboratory to really rethink what museums should be in this century and how they can better serve their community.
Can you tell us more about the Peels? Who were they and what were their roles?
Sure. Well, I mentioned Rembrandt Peale, who was the
Right.
founder, and his father, Charles Willson Peale, who was his inspiration and actually taught Rembrandt and all of his biological children to paint. But also the Rembrandt's slightly younger brother, Rubens Peale, came and took over running the museum I think that was 1822. Is that right, David?
That's correct.
It's interesting because Charles Willson Peale really felt that museums should be public educational institutions. And he was good friends with George Washington, with Thomas Jefferson, with many of the founding fathers, and he lobbied them throughout his life to subsidize museums for the public good. He thought a great nation needed great public educational institutions. He never managed to get a penny out of them, and so I kind of speculate that this might be why his son Rembrandt took a very different take and decided to run his museum as a business. He got investment to pay for the construction of his museum building and needed to pay his investors back through ticket sales and other revenues that he was able to get in running the museum. When Rubens came along, as we like to say, he kind of took the museum from being just a business to being show business. So he brought in the live acts, live animals, interesting performers, and really diversified the range of things that were on offer in the museum. Rembrandt had opened it as a museum and gallery of the fine arts, but it also exhibited natural history specimens, and Rembrandt was very interested in new technologies as well. So he introduced gas lighting in his museum, one of the very first buildings in the country to use it. And that allowed him to stay open later at night and sell more tickets, which was, of course, critical to paying back those investors. But it also secured him and his business partners the contract to create the very first gaslight street network, which was installed throughout the city of Baltimore, making Baltimore the first city in the country to be lit by gas streetlights. That was really transformative because before that, what people had were torches and candlelight and fires and fireplaces as their primary light means. There were some oil lamps and things like that, but gaslight was just exponentially brighter and more convenient to use and changed how people played and worked after dark. So it's fascinating that in this one museum, you really have a mix of art, of natural science, and of new technologies. And therefore, we don't feel like museums today that we have to stay in one camp or the other. We're quite happy to tell stories across the whole range of disciplines that Baltimore's creators are involved in.
It's amazing it's been going on so long. How has the pandemic impacted the operations?
Well, we have closed the building. In fact, we had closed the Peale building prior to the pandemic for interior renovation. As I'll, I guess, go into it in a little bit more detail in a moment, the Peale, in its last run as a museum, was actually shut down in 1997, and
Oh,
for 20 years. The roof started leaking. It suffered a lot of damage. The collection that had been in the building was transferred to the Maryland Historical Society. In 2015, we started renovating the and reopening it as this home for Baltimore stories with a born digital collection of recorded stories of the city and also hosting live performances. And we'd gotten as far as we could without shutting down the building to do some major infrastructure work inside, to install an elevator and things like that. So we had transferred our operations to a nearby historic building of similar age, the Carroll Mansion, and we're operating out of there. But as a result of the pandemic, we had to stop our physical world exhibition programs, and we're operating exclusively online now. And actually, having the Peale in Second Life has allowed us to give a new digital presence to one of the exhibitions impacted by the pandemic, the Redefinable exhibition. And folks can now see a digital version of that exhibition in the Peale Museum building here in Second Life.
yeah, I just cammed around a little bit. We are going to go on a tour a little bit later, so we'll see the inside of it for sure. So I see that's the reason that you guys are in Second Life, and we're happy to have you. What can people expect when the Peale opens in Second Life tomorrow? What are some of the highlights that the visitors can see? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, David's going to kick us off with a tour. Maybe you want to talk about that a bit, David, and I'd love for Emmy to chime in as well because she was absolutely instrumental in building out the experience that everyone will have tomorrow.
Sure. So from 11 to 11:30, I will give a brief tour of the building. One of the struggles we always have is that we could probably talk for 5 hours with all the stories that the building houses. But I'll give a brief tour and walkthrough, and then folks will have an additional 30 minutes to wander through the building and experience it on their own. And then at noon, we have a panel discussion, which is exploring accessibility both in historic buildings, but also the approach to accessibility in the virtual worlds, which is one of the things we find most fascinating about bringing our historic building to a virtual world, is how it can be used to address accessibility in all forms.
Can I just interject here really quickly? Because most of the viewers watching are used to Pacific time, and I just want to kind of point out that the timings that you mentioned are for tomorrow, Saturday, August 15th, Eastern time. So when you said
Eastern time.
the tour is at 11, it is actually 8 a.m. Pacific, just so people can know and not miss it. That's when the Peel will open to the public in Second Life at 8 a.m. Pacific SL time. Also, we will be live streaming it for that duration as well on this channel, so you can watch what's going on if you're not able to get in, because I imagine region limits. So go on, David. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure.
No, thank you for
Yeah,
clarifying.
yeah,
Very important note.
yeah.
One of the things that we pride ourselves on at the Peel is time travel, and so this is a good reminder that we need to
Right.
sync up our time in order to be able to travel through it. So yes, everything we talk about will be Eastern time, although from this point forward, we'll try to mention both Eastern and Pacific time, just to clarify for everyone.
Yeah.
After the panel discussion, which is from noon to 1 Eastern time,
Mhm.
9 to 10 Pacific time. The Peale and Peale staff will also be on hand for people who want to ask questions or wander through the building. And if we have time, maybe we can give an additional tour at that later hour as well.
Oh, that'll be good, I think.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think we've got such a great panel tomorrow. We'll probably, frankly, be in discussions about the Redefinable exhibition till closer to 1:30. But then, yeah, from 1:30, especially if David's offering it, I encourage everyone to join the second tour. And again, that is 11:30 Pacific.
Thank you.
Right. So how closely does the virtual building mirror the physical building?
Very
Oh,
closely. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay. I can speak about the interior. Luckily, the Peale had a wonderful 360 degree tour of the interior.
Hmm.
So I was able to use that and find very similar items. Sometimes I would create a little piece that would we could use in there. But I was able to mimic many of the rooms, so I think you'll notice that. And I think the first time Nancy saw it, she said it looks very Peale, so I thought that was good.
That's
It was
awesome.
actually a wonderful moment when we first walked in because we hadn't been able to use the building even prior to the pandemic. And it really felt like coming home and reminded me of how much we miss the building. It's an incredibly beautiful and evocative space that I don't know, somehow it just has its own magic that makes people feel at home. And I think you've really captured that here, Emmy, and of course the moles from Linden Lab who helped build it as well.
Must be a little
yeah,
bit nostalgic for you.
architecture, the interior as well, it is about as near exact to a replica as
Wow.
you could imagine. That being said, we've sort of embraced the opportunities that a virtual world offers, and so there's a entrance hallway that goes over the history of the Peale building, which we'll see when we step inside, and that entrance room is not part of the physical Peale building, though we wish it was. And there's a few additional surprises for those who are familiar with the Peale, but for the most part, you were pretty much in the building just as you would be if you were in the physical Peale.
Very cool. So I just kind of snuck a little peek in there and I saw something called the Storytelling Studio. What is that? Can you tell us more about that?
Well, as I mentioned, our real purpose today is to be a home for all of Baltimore's stories. So, one of the rooms in the physical building is dedicated to hosting workshops. Our storyteller in residence, Mama Linda Goss, has hosted many storytelling workshops and events in there. And it's a place that people can come and leave their stories and hear other stories. But of course, we have a digital extension of that as well. So we have an app called Be Here Stories that's available on iOS. And there's a web app version that is Android compatible, and people can record their stories through our website. And that's all in addition to events that we do in person. One of the things that has really been a major issue for us and concern during the pandemic is without the ability to meet people in person, a lot of the storytellers of the city kind of get stuck on the wrong side of the digital divide, and we don't want their stories and voices to go unheard, particularly in this historic moment. So we've been able to partner with Libraries Without Borders, who are taking technology packs into Baltimore's neighborhoods and enabling families that don't have internet access to get online. And all of our storytelling tools and references, our resources are in that pack. And we also have a wonderful storytelling ambassador on our team, Daisy Brown, who goes out on walks and interviews people that she encounters in the streets and is able to record their stories from a safe social distance and also capture photos of them. So we try to be everywhere that the storytellers are so that we make sure that those voices are recorded and amplified.
I'll also just add in, Nancy, since we are here this weekend launching our new exhibit about accessibility, is that one of the new ways that we have for people to record stories is a toll-free number that you can call, which we're calling our storytelling hotline.
Oh,
And so that's also if you don't have a smartphone or you don't have internet access, that as long as you have a telephone, you can call in for free and record your story that way.
very cool. So I know you
Inside
guys.
the
Go ahead, Emmy.
inside the building, there's a mailbox, so you can write your story if you want to do that
Oh,
and drop it in the mailbox. So
just drop a note card, huh?
yeah,
Great.
Mhm.
And I see you put a phone number here. It's 188 tell story. I'll
It's actually
copy it.
1833 tell
Oh,
Ah,
story.
83. Okay.
oops, sorry. Ah,
I'll paste that into the YouTube chat, so I don't know if anybody wants to use it, they can. So
Thank
speaking
you.
of exhibits, I know that you guys have physical exhibits. Are there other rotating exhibits that match those physical exhibits that will be in the virtual platform? And also, can you tell us about the current exhibit, Redefinable?
I'm sorry, you cut off there right at the end. What was your last point? Can you tell us?
Can you tell us about the current exhibit, the Redefinable exhibit that Nancy mentioned?
Sure. I can, Nancy, talk about the permanent exhibits if you want. If you want to take
please.
redefinable, great. So when we go in, you'll see in the uh, first gallery that we enter into, once we pass through the entrance hallway, is what we call our Peale Gallery. And it's more than just the Peale Gallery at this point. It does tell the story of the Peale family and some of their early adventures in both art and natural history. It also tells the story of the gaslight exhibit, so you'll get to see some of the early experiments with gaslight and some documents from that. And it also tells the story of the Peale Building's history as male and female colored school number one, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we get on the inside. So that's sort of our
Mm.
permanent exhibit. Um, Emmy and her team have also recreated a experience that has now been taken down at the physical Peale, but it's captured in a one form here in the virtual Peale, and that was our time travel experience. So for about 8 months' time, we utilizing a time machine, we offered tours to bring
Oh,
visitors in the museum to travel back 200 years to the year 1818, or as we entered into 2019, the year 1819, for them to visit Rembrandt Peale's private study at the Peale in that time. And so some of that experience has been recaptured and is here in the virtual Peale and Second Life as well.
very cool. Hopefully you can show me that when we walk around a little.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we define storytelling as happening in all sorts of media. So it happens from exhibitions and the kind of more traditional fine arts through theater performance. We have a lot of immersive theater at the Peale in Baltimore. And of course, the storytelling in both recorded and live formats as well. I think I mentioned earlier the Redefinable exhibition was one of the ones that was really impacted by the pandemic. We were planning to host it at the Carroll Mansion in Baltimore, our sort of temporary home at the Merrill Gallery at the University of Maryland, and there would also be online components. The aim of this exhibition is really to interrogate ableism and share the stories and amplify the voices of people living with disabilities in Baltimore and wider Maryland. So a lot of the exhibition was really self-reflexive about what does it mean to try to create an inclusive and accessible exhibition in a historic building. Well, no longer being able to do that in the physical historic building, we're now hosting the exhibition in a virtual historic building. And tomorrow's conversation will be about precisely how that is similar to and different from working in a physical historic building, how the issues of accessibility don't go away, but change. And therefore how, since there is not yet a one-size-fits-all or magic bullet solution to enable accessibility for everybody, how we can use these different platforms in concert to create a comprehensive access and inclusion in our events and our exhibitions, and indeed in the broader cultural record. So that's what the exhibition content is about, and Emmy built that for us, Emmy from Virtuality, and they have enormous experience creating exhibitions here in Second Life. So it might be useful to hear a little bit from her about how she did that.
Yes, actually, my next question was about that. You've partnered with Virtual Ability. Emmy's sitting right here with us for some aspects of this project. So can you share a bit about how they helped?
Well, yeah, I really want to pass the mic to Emmy here, but I guess Linden Lab took the basic 3D model that we had of the Peale, which had been created by our friends at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC, and their Imaging Research Center. They'd created it for a map of Baltimore. The URL is earlybaltimore.org. Which is really a 3D interactive map of the city of Baltimore circa 1815, so around the time of the War of 1812. And they gave us that model of the Peale, which they had created for their map. We handed it off to the Linden Lab team, who built it out, and then Emmy took it and really brought the whole thing to life. So with that, Emmy, could you talk about what you did?
Sure. Yeah, we were really thrilled because their first exhibit is about accessibility, which is been what we've been about for 13 years now. So we were able to make things as accessible as possible inside the building. So, you know, all the objects are named, so people with a screen reader will be able to read what the object is. Some of the items have click text, so you can get more history of each item. So if you find an item that your cursor turns to a hand, be sure and click on it to get some more information. So, and then working with Audra with the exhibit has been wonderful. She had a great design, and we just wanted to warm up the room a little bit and make it really inviting for all of her information. So it's been a really great project for Virtuality.
That's awesome. I can't wait to go there. Hopefully we can do that during the tour. Just a few more questions and then we can start walking around. What can you tell us about any future exhibits or plans for the Peale and Second Life that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, so we want to continue building out the building and the exhibits and the information, really the stories that are found inside the building. One really important part of the Peale's past is from 1878 to 1889, it was home to male and female colored school number 1. So we're now in Reconstruction era. And this was one of the very first public schools that had been created for people of color and African Americans in the city of Baltimore. And so we want to tell that story here in Second Life. We had research done into that history and a kind of a prototype exhibit before we shut down for our renovations in the physical Peale. And a lot of that information is actually available on the Peale's website already. So I'll post the link to that as well. So that's one aspect that I expect to see built out. We also have a wonderful garden behind the Peale. We call it the Pollinator Garden. It's sort of been rejuvenated in memory of Titian Peale, who was one of Rembrandt's younger brothers. He was, in addition to being an artist, he was a natural scientist and an explorer, and traveled Central and North America documenting the flora and the fauna, and had, in fact, the biggest collection of birds and butterflies in the country at the time. So that there's a lot of interesting both art and history and science to teach in the garden of the Peale. And then we will continue to work with contemporary artists as well. So when we go up to the building, you'll see across the ground floor at the front some Black Lives Matter signs that were painted by our artistic director, Jeffrey Kent. He is currently also curating exhibitions at the Peale in addition to creating his own work. So we'll be collaborating with him on bringing some of those into Second Life. And I had the great fortune of working with Dr. Natrice Gaskins on an exhibition of her work. She's a digital artist and educator who exhibited as part of the MuseWeb conference that was held in the auditorium here on what is now Peale Museum Island. It hosted the MuseWeb 20 conference in April. And so she's an artist whose work I think really works very well here in Second Life. She actually collaborates with algorithms to make her art, and so it's beautiful and very engaging. We're hoping to bring her together with one of my favorite musicians, Scott Patterson, from Afro House. They're based in Baltimore. And I just think some of the most important contemporary music being composed at the moment. And Scott and Afro House also create operas and ballets. They're kind of Afrofuturist, and in fact, they call them Afro-punk ballets. So all those are just a few interesting ideas that we're working on. But I would say we are also a platform. And in the physical world, actually, very little of our programming comes top down, so to speak, from me or the curators or team at the Peale. Most of it is proposed to us by our communities. And we'd like to have that happen here too. So we'd love to hear from folks in Second Life who have stories to tell about Baltimore or connected to Baltimore and the Peale. And we'd love to work with you to facilitate sharing those stories here on Peale Museum Island.
That's amazing. Who do they contact? How can they reach if they want to be
Probably
more
the
involved?
easiest way to reach out, I guess, would be by joining our group. They can email info@thepealecenter.org,
Great.
and we're happy to hear from them.
That's fantastic. So we're going to get up and do the tour in just a minute. I wanted to just ask about if you had a chance to actually check out the other, because we do have other museums and tons of art exhibits in Second Life, and I was just wondering if you guys had a chance to check any of those out. We have a lot on the destination guide. What do you think the future holds for these types of organizations and exhibitions in virtual spaces?
Yeah, well, actually, it's the huge population of museums and cultural activities in Second Life that was a big reason why we wanted to have a presence here as well, because we know there's already a really large audience that's hungry for that kind of content and experiences, and a good community for us to be part of. One of the things that I've really appreciated is that there is in the Second Life destination guides, you can just go and kind of look up all the museums. And I was checking out one that actually came recommended today, which is the Art Atelier. I think they're opening
Yes.
a show tomorrow as well.
Yes.
Art Atelier Gallery out of, I think it's Argentina. And so that looked really interesting.
It should
And
be.
I also stumbled across the Black History Museum
Yes.
thanks to that destination guide. And boy, that's fantastic. I mean, Black history. The Peale is a member of the Association of African American Museums, and I feel like some of the most important part of our history is speaks to very directly the African American educational experience in Baltimore. So this is something we've been focused on. But when I went into that museum, I was so excited to see, yes, the kind of core stories that we all need to know about African American history, but many that I hadn't been aware of before. So it was
Absolutely.
really a great learning experience for me.
Yes, the resident did such a great job with that. David, you were saying something?
I was going to say, in terms of your second point of what is the future of
Yes.
museums or art in this space, I think that one thing that the pandemic has brought about is sort of this rapid advancement into exploring and experimenting with new or emerging or unfamiliar platforms with which to showcase art and stories. And so, I think that during this time, as people are finding other ways to deliver these experiences to the public, I think we're going to see this rapid advancement in utilizing new technologies that I think will carry on far beyond the pandemic. I think people are going to start to realize that this isn't just a interim solution to be able to deal with the fact that visitors aren't able to come to physical museums or galleries, but they're going to start to embrace these technologies as part of their ongoing programming even beyond the pandemic. So I think that this time is going to be really transformative to museums and galleries, but really the entire cultural sector.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely. Let's go for a little quick tour. If you guys can show me around, and maybe while we're walking around, David, you can tell us a little bit about your interesting avatar.
Sure.
I love it.
I'm I'm just happy that I was able to stand up without um, making a fool of myself, which sometimes happens. Although I appear to be floating in the air.
No, I mean you guys are doing pretty well with SL. I think you guys got the hang of it.
Sorry for dancing on the table there. I got excited.
We're all used to dancing on the table when he got up. Okay, so when people land at the Peale, they you were talking about the entrance. Can you tell us more about how this entryway is not in the actual Peale?
Yeah, so actually the front of the building is in fact accurate. This is what you would see if you were standing in front of the physical building in Baltimore.
Hmm.
This is not what our street looks like at the present moment in the physical building. This is we are on Holiday Street, which is a fairly busy city street
Right.
in the physical world. But the front of the building and the facade is exactly as what you would see if you were standing in front of the building. It's once we step through the front doors that you enter into a room that does not exist in the physical world, though, as I mentioned, we wish it did.
So let's take a look. I know you were talking about the images in this hallway. You want to tell us more about that, Nancy?
Sure. Yeah, so this was really an innovation to the digital building that we have the moles to thank for. And when we first walked in, I was like, wow, this is interesting because this, as David said, this hallway doesn't actually exist in the physical building. But what
Right.
they did was they saw that we had actually going up the staircase in the physical building, display of photos, images of the Peale through the ages. And I thought this was such a perfect way to welcome people to the Peale, to show them how the building has evolved, some of its different uses over the past 200 and some years. And it also makes the point that this digital version of the Peale in Second Life is just another in a long history of innovations and iterations of what the Peale is. And of course, that will continue into the future as well. So I like that point about how history is not static being made in such a beautiful and immersive visual way here.
I can
Love it.
point out just a couple of pictures that are my
Sure.
that I think are quite interesting. The first one is the um, first picture when you walk in on your right past the sign.
Okay.
This guy right over here, right
Hmm.
behind where Nancy is standing. And this is an enlargement from a map that was made in 1822 of Baltimore called the Poppleton map, which was a map of the city at the time, but they also highlighted about 30 major buildings. And so here it says a museum established by Rembrandt Peale. So it's a museum and gallery of fine arts on Holiday Street. So you can see that the building in the front looked the same
Yeah.
as what we just saw on the outside. And another one of my favorites, and we'll go into, as we mentioned, the history of the colored school and the history of the museum and its life as the municipal museum, as well as its time as the very first city hall in Baltimore. But there's another interesting period which we don't have too much information about. If you continue down on your right here, I think it's the third from the end. And let me see if I can look over there. And it's oops, I'm stuck. It is this building during this brief amount of time when it was actually none of those uses. It was actually industry. And so we can see, let me see, I think we're,
Yeah, I see
yeah,
it.
third from the end before we turn over here.
Hmm.
Um, and um, and so we had a sign maker in the building. You could see the cars in the front from the turn of the century. And so this is just an interesting time right before it became the Municipal Museum of Baltimore in the 1930s. And it was during this time that the building was nearly destroyed and the city was ready to tear it down. But I like it because it's not clean. It was being used for manufacturing and other making. And so it's just an interesting moment that oftentimes gets glazed over when we go through the other really exciting parts of the history of the Peale. And so I like to point that out as well. If you do come back and visit us, you can see slight changes to the building that have taken place over time. The labels on the front of the building, the signage, the pediment that was added during the 1930s renovation. So I encourage you to spend some time in this room if you're able to join us at a future date.
I love it. Nancy, you were going to show us some artwork, I think.
Sure. Well, I'll show you the Peale Gallery, which
Yeah.
has kind of little objects that help us tell the stories of the building. When you come into the front lobby here, there is a guest book and some
Oh,
places to click for more information and to join our group. The storytelling studio, where you can leave your story, is on the left. And then here, sort of straight ahead into my right, to the right of the staircase, above the chair that David London is sitting in, is Rembrandt Peale, a portrait of him by his father, Charles Willson Peale. And if we turn to the right and go into the gallery off the lobby to the right, we can actually see the old man himself, Charles Willson Peale.
oh,
So he painted this portrait of himself, this self-portrait called The Artist in His Museum, just a couple of years before his death. The original is in the collection of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts. And it's a wonderful view that shows him at this point he had moved his museum out of his home, and he's in public building in Philadelphia. And he's lifting this red curtain to welcome us into what was called the Long Gallery. He, in that gesture, is really signaling the idea that museums are for everyone, that they are public educational institutions, which was a brand new idea of the day. But in the same painting, he's also showing us who are the visitors he's expecting to visit, and in a way sort of limiting it in the same gesture to we see a Quaker lady showing what is an appropriate response to this exhibit, which is wonder. We see an older man and a young boy learning, and then we see at the back another man kind of deep in contemplation. They are all white, presumably all fairly educated and well off. So it's the beginning. It's the beginning of the opening of the museum that we see in this painting by Charles Willson Peale. We see the tools of his trade. On the table is a palette, and then down on the floor in front of him with a wild turkey bending over it is a taxidermy kit. So again, museums were not so specialized back then. You didn't have art in one building and then science and natural history in different buildings. Both Rembrandt Peale and Charles Willson Peale's museums really mixed it up, and it was just all stuff that was interesting and beautiful and appealed to what they called people of elegance and taste. Behind the curtain, you might notice a very large skeleton. This is also an important
yes.
part of the Peale history. That is actually a mastodon skeleton. And in
Oh,
1801, Charles Willson Peale, always curious and interested in everything, got word that a farmer in upstate New York had plowed up some very large bones. He went up there with his sons and oversaw the excavation of those bones. It was able to recover enough to create two complete mastodon skeletons. One was exhibited in his Philadelphia museum, and the other one in Rembrandt Peale's Baltimore museum. And we can actually see a painting that Charles Willson Peale created of that scene over the mantelpiece here.
oh, wow.
This painting is called The Exhumation of the Mastodon. The original is in the collection of the Maryland Historical Society. It actually used to be in the Peale Museum building in Baltimore, and was really the centerpiece or the crown jewel of the collection. It's a fantastic painting. It's not really a literal documentary. It's a bit of an idealized staging of the event, but there are some really interesting historical details, like the pump that had to be designed and built to get the water out of the excavation pits. We see a sort of an idealized family group up on the bank with Charles Willson Peale gesturing into the pit, and they're holding a large sketch of one of the bones. With him are his eldest son, Raphael Peale, who was a fantastic painter and particularly expert in still lifes. Rembrandt's there, Rubens is there, and also two of Charles Wilson's wives, one of whom had already deceased. So it's a really interesting painting that encapsulates a lot of different things. And again, you can read up more about that and see the original in the Maryland Historical Society collection.
Amazing.
I just wanted to make one comment about the artist
Please.
and his museum painting really quickly, which is just sort of the dramatic nature of pulling back the curtain and how at this time really and also embodied with their love of the natural world as well as art making and technologies, that the Peale family really saw their museum as a place of wonder and a place to share that wonder. And I think that the artist, that the painting and the pulling back of the curtain was a way of Charles Willson Peale sort of recognizing the theatricality of the museum experience that the Peale family was trying to create.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up, David, because I think that's one of the learnings from this very early American museum that we want to relearn and continue into 21st century museum practice. That, museum visiting is a sort of a performance, it's an immersive experience, and it should be and can be very participatory. Again, it doesn't have to be just a passive looking at things on pedestals and in glass cases. And in fact, the more multisensory we can make it, the more engaging it is for everybody, as well as the more accessible.
Yeah, and I think that the Peale family knew something that many museums have forgotten today, which is that wonder isn't just theatrical. It's also wonder and play are both also amazing tools to open people's minds. And when people's minds are open, they become much more receptive to actually receiving information. And so it's not just the theatrical component of recognizing the museum as a place of wonder, but it's also the educational component that's really important to us.
This is amazing. I love all the stories that you guys have to tell. Is there a more that you wanted to show me in this area? Because I'd also want to make sure we have time for the exhibit that
Yeah.
we want to show some of that as
Yeah,
well.
Do
I'm
you want
just
to
gonna
pop back to the back room or do you want to head upstairs?
Wherever you guys
um,
want to take me, go for it.
and I think I'd like to just gesture very quickly before we leave this
Mhm.
room at two areas, two other really important stories that are kind of signaled in this room.
Mhm.
One on the little table here in the corner, we see two silhouettes. One of them is of the silhouette artist Moses Williams, who was the son of an enslaved couple that had been part of the Peale household. He was actually born into that household and lived with the family until he was 27 and learned the art of silhouette cutting. And next to him is a portrait of Angelica Kaufman Peale, one of the Peale daughters that he cut. And so there's a really interesting set of stories to be had there around Charles Willson Peale's relationship to abolition, and also the Moses Williams relationship to silhouette and kind of what happened as photography came in, which ultimately sadly put him out of business. So there's all sorts of fascinating stories there. And then over just on the wall where the doors are, there's a black and white engraving of Rembrandt Peale demonstrating his gaslight chandeliers, which I mentioned earlier. And you can kind of see how captivated people were by this new technology. They say that folks who couldn't avoid the price of admission to come into the building would stand out on Holiday Street and kind of gape at the lit windows because they'd never seen such bright light coming from inside a building. The company that Rembrandt Peale founded to create streetlight business is in existence today, and at 205 years old, an electric BGE.
Oh,
is
you're
one of the
cutting
oldest.
out for me a little bit. Can you say that again?
Oh, sorry, yes.
Hmm.
So the company that Rembrandt Peale founded, BGE, Baltimore Gas and Electric, is still the electric, of course, was added a little bit later on, but it's one of the continually operating companies in the world. So that's another interesting part of kind of the history and also the connection to new technologies of the Peale building and its history.
Oh, you have stuff about mastodons over here too on this table. We
Oh
were just
yes.
talking.
Well, I'm not going to dive into that
Okay.
because there are many mastodons to be found if you are willing to
Oh.
explore Peel Museum Island. And Emmy's helped us create some fun things to investigate and discover. So
Oh,
do
okay.
come in and see how many mastodons you can find here.
Oh, that's fun. It's like a treasure hunt.
That's
Mastodon
right.
hunt.
Yes.
Where are we headed next?
So let's
Who's
head
the
up to the Redefinable exhibition.
Okay.
So we're going to go up the stairs here.
Okay. So this is how people would go when they come here if they want to see the exhibit.
That's right. So we're heading up to a room that
So
we
that's
know
the
as the picture
entrance.
gallery.
Right.
It's actually the room that makes this building architecturally unique. Again, another story that we would need more time to delve into. At the top of the stairs is a detail of Charles Wilson Peale's museum. You might recognize it from the painting below. That was by his son, Titian Peale. And we can just go into this doorway here.
Okay. Oh, I'm in a. Oh, I think I have to accept an experience, I believe, or do I click it? Hang on one second. It's probably because I'm in.
You do have to accept the experience.
I don't know if I did earlier. Let's see. Yeah, it's. Oh, there we go. Now it worked.
There's
So you
Strawberry.
once you get here, just letting the viewers know that you have to accept an experience to go through that door to be teleported
Ah,
here. That's what I had to do. Okay.
great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
so
yeah,
here we
so
are.
here's an example as you entered through, since you just told them they have to accept the experiences. We get to use some of the magic that's offered in the virtual world. And so we're actually
Right.
in a skybox right now, floating several hundred feet above the Peel. And if you're not familiar with Second Life, then you're just going to have to accept that magic for what it
You
is.
can't do that in the physical world.
Definitely
No,
not yet, at
no.
least. I'll add it to the
This
list.
Right.
this room is about 4 times as big as the room in the physical world. You might, if you look up, you'll see it's got a really cool skylight, which was important in a time before electricity to provide natural light during the day, and then of course Rembrandt could use his gaslight chandeliers
It's
in the evenings.
beautiful.
Yeah, Emmy
Really
did an
great.
amazing job setting this up. So maybe we should hand over to Emmy for a little bit of a tour.
Yeah, Emmy, can you give us a tour here?
Sure. We would like folks to, when they land at the landing point, to turn left and start
Okay.
over here where I am.
Let me turn around then.
And yeah, so Audra has set up the the posters in such a way that they're done by different groups. So unfortunately, I wish she was here to explain it because this is really her baby. But we just took her work and expanded on it. We wanted to make the posters a little bit warmer with the frames, put some rugs on the floor to warm up the room, add the garden box so that there's a little bit of greenery in here. But yeah, the information that that is included with the Redefinable program is just fabulous. And you know, it's all the credit goes to her students that put all this together. And we're hoping that some of them will be able to join us tomorrow, so that and Audra will be here as well, so she'll be able to answer questions. But we invite people to walk through. There's interactive part where you can answer a yes/no question. There's also a video that they would love for you to watch that was part of the process, and then a survey at the very end. So lots of parts to this, and so it's an excellent exhibit.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that again, you will meet all these people here tomorrow at the open house. It's from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. And I will also be live streaming it to our Second Life channel, so you can also watch it on the live stream. But if you come, you can talk to the panelists and everybody here and get more information about the Peale and more information about the exhibit. I have links in the description of the videos as well. You can click over for more information. And yeah, Nancy, were you going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to comment that actually, in so many ways, this exhibition exemplifies the Peale process. This was not our idea. Professor Buck Coleman, Audra, came to us with the concept of doing an exhibition that was about storytelling and really interrogating our tools and our ability to design exhibition experiences to be inclusive and accessible. And that really resonated for us because accessibility and inclusion are, of course, core values and critical to our mission and doing the work that we're trying to do here. So we partnered and were able to get support from the Maryland Humanities Organization and also from an organization out of the UK. With some partners there to really fund the creation of the project. But again, it had to be moved online at very short notice. And in addition to the students that Audra was working with, she really partnered with community members. So I think you can see in the video one of the contributors, Joe Coleman, and other people living with disabilities in Baltimore, informed the design and the creation of the content for the exhibition, and also participated by sharing their stories. And many more are doing that through our browser-based exhibition portal as well. So it's very community-driven rather than top-down from the Peale, and it's all about accessibility and inclusion. But that said, it was no small challenge to rethink what were going to be physical interactives and participatory experiences in the physical world for this online context. And again, hats off to Emmy and Virtual Ability and Audra and her team for figuring that out in very short order indeed.
That's wonderful. You both mentioned a video that's here that people can watch. Where is that? How do I just want to kind of show where that
Yes,
is. Emmy, can you? Oh, maybe
if
she knows.
you look, there's a set of kind of a semicircle of chairs, sort of
Oh,
behind
right
me
here.
and to
Okay.
my left. And so, yeah, you can see the video there. Your camera was on it a little while ago, I think.
Okay, so then people can just sit here and just watch the video
watch
from
that.
here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then there's also a survey on the screen to the right.
Right. And if they click it, it'll take them to the links. Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. This is fantastic. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to show our viewers before I tell them about the program a little bit tomorrow?
Emmy, what are we forgetting?
I think we've got it all.
Okay, cool. Well, I guess actually, if we do have a couple more minutes, we could perhaps head back downstairs and check out Rembrandt Peale's private study.
Let's do it. Let's do it. While we're going down, how do we get down there, or will you guys teleport me?
We're just going to exit the door we came in.
Oh, okay, that's easy. So while we're actually doing that, I just want to remind our viewers that tomorrow, again, is the Peale opening ceremony in Second Life. You guys are calling it the Founders Day Virtual Open House. And actually, can you tell us more about that, about the panelists, while we're kind of going there? Or where am I headed now? I'm just
We're
going to
going
follow you.
downstairs.
Down the steps.
Okay.
And we're going to go behind the stairs to a part of the building we hadn't entered before.
Yeah, didn't know there was.
It's actually, in the physical world, it's a 3-story building.
Okay.
And so far we only have most of the first and some of the second floor built out.
David disappeared on me. I don't know where you went.
I transported to Rembrandt Peale's desk here somehow. I don't know how, but More of the magic of the Peale.
Yes, the spirit has moved you. Truly, it moves within you,
Oh,
David.
there he is. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so this is his private. Oh, wow.
So this is when we had the physical time travel experience at the Peale. This room was completely filled with objects, and our friends at Virtuality have uh, graciously brought some of those objects over to the virtual Peale as well. And so there are an infinite number of stories that can be told in this room as well. Right behind where Nancy is sitting is a tank with a sea serpent inside of it. We know that Rembrandt around 1817 got really obsessed with sea serpents, along with the rapid discovery of sea serpents that started to take place in America around that time, starting uh, with the Gloucester sea serpent in Boston. It's sort of like the UFO phenomenon of the 1960s. One person saw a sea serpent, and then five people, and then
Yeah.
hundreds of people were somehow seeing sea serpents. It's amazing how that happens.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's a dodo bird over
I
here,
just
which was
saw
not
that.
part of the physical, but representative of some of the taxidermy that was on display in that room. The Peels are really innovative in their display of natural history specimens. They were the first people, because of their artistic sensibilities, to actually add realistic backdrops to dioramas to display taxidermied animals. And so if you go to a Natural History Museum today, you'll see a similar type of display where they were placing these taxidermied specimens into more natural environments to create a more authentic experience. And so because of their painterly abilities, they were able to bring that innovation to the display of taxidermy. They were also innovators in taxonomy, so they developed a system for organizing specimens for display as well. And
There's a
over
kitten on the
here,
floor. That's mine.
that's
She's
your kitten.
following me
Oh,
around. That's my kitten. Yeah, that's not
I
part of the
noticed that
museum.
earlier. Yeah. I was just glad that it wasn't a rat, so
No.
that's good. Behind you, Strawberry, or
Yes.
to your right, I suppose, are some various illustrations of the mastodon on display. A really funny point is that you'll notice in the two higher illustrations that the tusks of the mastodon were pointing downward. This is how the Peale family originally displayed the mastodon before they realized that was incorrect and adjusted from that point forward. So it's just interesting to think about at a time when new species were being discovered, that really you didn't know how those animals once existed. And so you sort of had to use creative license, and sometimes you made mistakes and adjusted from that point forward. I think those are my
Yes,
key points in this room.
and the Peale's mastodons were actually the first prehistoric animals ever to be exhibited in a museum anywhere.
Wow.
And the very concept of extinction wasn't really well understood then. So Thomas Jefferson, who was president at the time that these were excavated, actually was extremely hopeful that Lewis and Clark would find on their explorations of the North American continent some living mastodons. Um, but as David said, it's a learning experience. And in fact, scholars and historians learn too. Up until very recently, everybody thought that that drawing actually was a famous drawing by Rembrandt Peale of the skeleton was a skeleton of the mastodon. And in fact, we only recently learned that it was actually a drawing of an elephant skeleton, which he was studying in order to figure out how to put together a
Oh.
mastodon skeleton. So, we live humbly because
Mhm.
we realize we don't know it all, and we're constantly learning. And history is not at all static, but it's a growing, progressive experience as well.
It definitely is. So, anything else you guys want to show me? I know we're reaching the top of the hour, but wanted to make sure that we covered everything that we wanted to cover.
I think that's been a pretty good cursory introduction to the building. As
For
you can
sure.
tell, there are so many stories to tell, and it's something we have to figure out for every tour, which is which stories we want to focus on, because every object in this building has a story to tell, just like we believe every person has a story to tell. So if you are able to join us tomorrow, we can share with you some other and some different stories if you're able to join us in the future. And as we mentioned, we'll continue to flesh out the stories that can be explored even without one of us present to give you that information.
That's
And I
great.
would like to just thank you, Strawberry, and all the folks in Linden Lab, and of course, Virtual Ability. We couldn't have done this without you all, and you really helped us start to crystallize what it would mean for the Peale to be not just a platform, but also a portal to other places and other times, and make sure that there are many, many ways to experience Baltimore's stories. So thank you for giving us this enormous head start on that next journey of the Peele's iteration.
It's a big shout out to Emmy, Virtual Ability, and the Moles for this. It's wonderful. I've seen like a live tour of the Peel in the physical world, and it's amazing how accurate this virtual depiction is. So
It
again, I just
really is.
wanted to let the viewers know. Emmy, you want to say anything before we end here? I want to make sure give you a chance to.
It was a great pleasure for us to be part of this project.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So again, the viewers, if you look in the description of the video, you will see all the links to the Peel and the event tomorrow. They open to the public at 8 a.m. Pacific time, SL time. You will find it on the destination guide. You will find it in the description of this video, and we will also be live streaming it. The panelists start, I believe, David, you said at 9 a.m. Pacific time.
That's correct.
And you guys will be around for about 2 hours after that as well, I believe. And yeah, so
That's
it should
right.
be fun. Thank you so much to
Thank
um,
you.
to Nancy, David, Emmy for being here, for telling us all about this, and for this wonderful tour. And thanks to our viewers for watching. We will see you all tomorrow. Keep an eye on the Second Life community blogs for future announcements about LabGab. And remember, stay safe, stay home, stay virtual. Bye, everyone.
Bye, all. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you,
Thank you.
Strawberry.